There are lots of things that governments spend money on: education, housing, transportation, needless stadiums. And for all the money spent, there are journalists covering it. In 2004, there were 3 reporters for every $100 million spent. And in 2020, there was only 1. That's a lot of spending to be covered by just one person. See, since 2004, the number of reporters per 100,000 people have dropped by 62%. Stephen Waldman calls this coverage density. Distilling all the information that might impact any particular 100,000 people is a lot of work, divided among fewer and fewer reporters. And there are a few reasons for this drop in coverage density. One is concentration of ownership. Half the newspapers in the US are owned by hedge funds, which means that those newspapers are investment vehicles, products to be optimized and contorted until there's a worthwhile profit. Newsrooms get gutted and streams of information that readers rely upon get thinner and thinner. Alden Global Capital is a hedge fund that routinely guts newspapers. The Vallejo Times-Herald in 2014 had a staff of about a dozen reporters, editors, and photographers. They were also owned by Alden Global Capital. And a few years later, the Vallejo Times-Herald had just 1 reporter left on staff charged with covering the city's police, schools, government, courts, hospitals, and businesses. Another issue is with the advertising model. Not the conflict of interest that often comes with it, which is its own problem, but the fact that it's dried up. From 2000 to 2020, there was an 81% drop in newspaper advertising. In 2000, classified ads brought in close to $20 billion for newspapers. In 2019, it was closer to $2 billion. The result is an information vacuum that gets filled with redundant national news, talk radio, and local Facebook groups that can become hubs of misinformation. So how do we fix it? Writing in the Columbia Journalism Review, Waldman offers some solutions. A big thing is that papers need to be replanted, as he calls it. Ownership needs to be local. Journalism is a public good, but it can't be a public good if it's just another investment from which to extract profits. He also estimates that we need about 50,000 new reporters. This would come out to about $3 billion a year. Where does that money come from? Well, one way is through tax credits, like the one that was in the Build Back Better Act, which would have provided $350 million a year for 5 years, which theoretically would have alone been responsible for 5,000 new reporters. The US just in general underfunds its public media. In 2020, we spent only $1.40 per capita on public media, whereas countries like Finland and Sweden spent more like $100 per capita. And to add the suggested 50,000 reporters, the US realistically has to come up to about here. And if we did that, it would go a long way to rebuilding local newsrooms. Check out Stephen Waldman and the work he's doing, link in description. And if you'd like to support these videos, the best way is to just share them.